Hello friends, this is Sharmi from the Amateur Gardener coming to you with another video. Hope you're having a fun time in your garden today, and this video is mostly about the ground covers that I have tried and that has worked for me in the past. I do mulch parts of my garden, but like over time I have wanted to use more and more things that kind of readily cover garden spaces. I garden in a Houston suburb and only have about a third of an acre to play with. That's my total lot size. So I don't want something to go totally wild. I don't have acres and acres of land that I can afford for something to go really wild. So I try to use ground covers that are more strategically planted so that they can grow but flourish in a more controlled space, like smaller areas, and that allows me to kind of not use mulch every time. I do fertilize my entire garden space in the spring, and I just want to keep it at that. There are specific ones that I fertilize again later on. Some of my annuals get additional fertilization, my veggies get additional fertilization, but I don't do it to the rest of my plants. And then I always have soil erosion, no matter what. Even from my raised beds, I start at one level in the beginning of the year, and by the end of the season or by the next season, I have to put bags and bags of soil or compost in it to get the soil up. Now, for my veggie beds, I cannot use ground covers, of course. That is understandable. But a lot of my flower beds, and I have quite a few, I do want to utilize ground covers that grow in a controlled manner. So let me take you to some of the things that have worked for me, and you can chime in with whatever has worked for you, and then we can share ideas. Okay, so let's get going. So first and foremost, what I want to talk about as a ground cover is lemon Coral Sedum. If you can see here, this is one of my shade garden beds. I have not used it in my sunny bed, though that part of the garden gets a little more sun, but morning sun though. But this area, I have used it and have let it go wild, and I don't mind it. I would rather have this than weeds. Even though there may be a few weeds here and there, they do a great job of covering up. So giving you a look here, I have it in this spot, and I also have it in another spot. This is another spot where I have lemon Coral Sedum. So if you can see here, it's in my shade garden bed again. Gets a little bit of like late afternoon sun, but as you can see, it's between my hydrangeas, my farfugium, and my fatsia, so it's between them. So these are two places that I have this lemon Coral Sedum. It produces flowers sometimes in spring. Some of it is in flower, as you can see this right now, but that's not what I like them for. I actually like them for the foliage. So I might just take a trimmer and cut off the flowers a little bit, maybe in a week or two. But then I just like the lush green foliage that it provides. And then even though there are like one or two weeds here and there, it does, like you can see, there is a weed here. And let me take it out. Yes, there is a weed, of course. There are always weeds, but it does a wonderful job of covering it up. Okay, so that's number one. The next that I have on my list is this one. This is drops of Jupiter Oregano. Those little black dots that you're seeing, that's from a fertilizer. I try to fertilize my tree hydrangea here, but I will wash them off. But as you can see, it's doing a wonderful job of spreading, and this is just one plant. Believe me, it is one plant that I planted here, and I don't mind it spreading somewhat, and I probably will take maybe little bits of it and put it elsewhere as well. So this is my number 2 best ground cover. It is really thick, and I don't see a single weed penetrating through it. So this is number 2. Now, of course, I'm taking it to my beloved ground cover. This is number 3 on my list, and this is a verbena. This particular variety is Endurascape Verbena white, or it was actually looking far better. Some of the blooms have died off, but it has been in flower since early March. It did not die back over the winter. It was just leaves though. But then from late Feb, early March, it started flowering. And I'm looking for an opportunity where I probably will, maybe early next month, just trim it back and then let it grow back. So I love this ground cover. It does allow a few weeds here and there. I have some other plants like planted in between. Like every, I think 1 or 2 feet, I have these gomphrena planted that I did from seed at one time. I really like them. I will allow them to grow in between these. And then I had some zinnia here that are self-seeding. I usually pull them out and put them in other places. You can see a zinnia is already starting to flower here. I'll probably pull it out. As you can see, this produces like a thick carpety look of like white clouds. It was looking like far wider before. This is number 3 on my list as a ground cover. Now, since that verbena was doing so good, I got another Endurascape Verbena. I planted it here. This is Endurascape Purple Fizz. I really like the color combination here. And I planted it here to kind of spread in this area. I expect it to look very much like that in a year from now, but I do like this color combination, so it'll be a nice place where I can prevent like weeds in this area. So this was number 3 on my list. So far I've talked about the lemon Coral Sedum, which you can grow in either sun or shade. Then oregano is, I have it in full sun and it's doing awesome. And then the verbena also would love full sun. So that, now this is another ground cover that I have. This is a St. John's Wort. It is actually Brigadoon St. John's Wort. I have like 10 of them here. And I planted these in, I think, 2023. And they have spread. But this is like a part sun area. Of course, this is open. So, but then there are like trees around it. So as the sun shifts to the west, it gets shade. And then we have like these palm trees. These are growing up. And the St. John's Wort is progressing towards the bottom of the palm trees. So these do get shade. Now, there are weeds here. You can see some. But it does a wonderful job of covering it up. And I like the, you know, the bright spot here. This in the afternoon, it gets a little bit in the shade. So I think the light color of the St. John's Wort, this variety, Brigadoon, it brightens up the space. And I would not mind if it spreads to the rest of the bed under the palm trees here in this part. Number 5 on my list is Yarrow. This one is Achillea or Yarrow. As you can see, it's in bloom now. It is a combination of white and some of them are pink, like a light pink here. I'll put the name of the variety up here. This one is Oertel's Rose. It's a white to pink variety. And I let it go under this backside of my, what I call my palm island. And I let it spread. Now this area I do almost no weeding. So I really like that it has nicely spread in this area. This is extremely drought tolerant and it does have, I think, a little bit of drip on that side, but this side it probably doesn't, and it doesn't care. So this side is very drought tolerant, and I've let it spread on this other side of the palm as well, and it's nicely thriving here. It flowers almost throughout, all from spring through fall. And then it doesn't die back in the winter, so it stays green. So this is definitely number 5 on my list, given that it is so drought tolerant, and if it comes in my way, I just pull it out. And it doesn't mind that. And this also, I have only 10 planted here, and as you can see, they have spread quite a bit. Next on my list is Lamium. You have to plant it in shady areas. It will definitely get scorched by our Houston sun. But it does spread more like an understory ground cover. I do use Carex as well in shady areas. That's more like a ornamental grass, but it does a nice job of covering spaces. Another one on my list is creeping phlox. I have some here. I've planted it in like spots here, and hopefully it'll cover up this spot. I usually plant them in shady areas as well. It's more like also like an understory plant for it. Another one is a perennial, but I also use it to cover big spaces. This one is Gaura. So you can see a clump here, and then I actually pull it out and plant it in multiple spots. Like this is another spot I'm trying to cover with Gaura. It's a very pollinator friendly plant, so you'll see a lot of bees and even like hummingbirds coming to Gaura. Next on my list is Agastache. This one is from Proven Winners. The variety is Blue Boa. Beautiful flowers and very pollinator friendly. It spreads, as you can see we have multiple here, and then all I do is I pull it out from the places I don't want, and that's super easy. Next on my list is Caryopteris. I have two different varieties. This one is, I think, Midnight Marble or Midnight Blue, something like that. As you can see, the multiple layers of blooms, which is lovely. I have a whole patch here. It spreads a little bit, not too much, very controlled. This one spreads way more. This one is Beyond Pink, also from Proven Winners, and this one spreads significantly. And actually I don't mind it. I love the flowers, and it's very easy to pull out if you don't want it in a certain spot. These are Homestead Purple Verbena, recently planted, and I'm planning to use this as ground cover for the front of the boxwood hedge. Like I have more here. They spread very nicely, and I have great experience with the Endurascape Verbena, which is why I wanted to try out this one. I have vines here that are coming up, but wherever I don't have vines, you can see I've started Homestead Purple Verbena or Salvia. I wanted to show you another non-conventional ground cover I typically use. This one is just regular mums, and they are perennial mums. They come back every year. Actually, they never die back. They stay evergreen for us in our zone. And then, as you can see, it's like early May now, and it is blooming. So I get flushes throughout the year. This area enjoys some shade of the two large oak trees. So I use this, and then I have Superbena pink cashmere in between, which flowers over until fall, but after that these mums have a huge flush. One of the last ones that I wanted to show you is Russian sage. This one spreads super redly. It's coming through the cracks, and I always like pull out and then I put more back here, but I have a huge clump here and I wouldn't mind this anywhere. This flowers all summer, all fall, so it looks extremely beautiful. There are a few other ones that I am just starting to try out. I'll let you know how it goes. This one is I think it's red legs Solomon seal, so again planted in shade. Another one you can try as a ground cover is Creeping Jenny. I actually don't try it because in our weather it kind of takes over, so I only have it in pots as accents. Another one that I am trying is for the first time is Jacob's Ladder. This one is a variegated variety. It doesn't spread as much, but also needs shade, so I'll let you know how that goes. Hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, do hit a like and do subscribe to my channel, and do share with what you have done as ground covers slash things to cover up decent amount of space so that you don't have to mulch it as often. It also helps in water retention, soil retention. So things that have worked for you, I would love to know, especially in the south. I always am for experimenting with newer things, and if you have tried something that doesn't go like wild like Creeping Jenny, then I would like to know, and I would like to try it out. Things that I would never try in my garden would be something like ivy. I do not want ivy in my garden. So Boston ivy or any of the other English ivies, no, I don't want it, because I know once you get it in your garden, that's it. You cannot get it out. So I want something that is more controlled, but I'm experimenting with some of them. We'll give it a try. I also got some Brunnera to experiment in one of my shade areas. I'll let you know how that goes. Until I see you in my next video, bye-bye.